Hello, do you like New Japan Pro Wrestling? Are you a Shin Nihon freak? If so, check out the Super J-Cast with Joel and Damon on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
And even if you fucking hate New Japan Pro Wrestling, listen to the Super J-Cast anyway. Not just for our great show reviews, analysis, and pastrami sandwiches, but there's also usually some dick jokes somewhere in the obligatory opening 30 minutes of absolute nonsense we chat about every single week. That's the Super J-Cast for all the best talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, crisps, and pornography.
Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney. In every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome to another episode of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungee here on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. I'm your host, Tyler Fornes. With me today is Fred. I ain't getting a Threads account, Moreland. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right as the social media landscape collapses into just sheer chaos. I'm doing all right. I am now on Blue Sky, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the one that dies. But that's okay because it's actually good right now, at least. So I will take that over like whatever the hell Twitter is these days. And I haven't signed up for Threads. I don't have a Threads account. I will never get a Threads account if all goes well. But just the screenshots of whatever the hell you call tweets on Threads look like just pure hell. Just nothing but brands and celebs, and not the celebs that would be fun to watch or follow, but I don't know, Ellen DeGeneres with her heavily sculpted Twitter, branding bullshit. It just looks awful. Like I don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I have Threads, and at least it's easy. I don't know if I like it. I haven't really used it a lot. I would prefer Twitter. Twitter is,
Twitter was good. I mean, even though it was the hell site, it was good at stuff, and now it's not good at that stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm. As Odie readjusts himself to snuggle with me on the couch, it's social media is such a weird construct because the whole idea of it was to be able to keep in touch with people that you normally wouldn't be able to keep in touch with. Because back when we were kids and our parents used to have pen pals. And phone calls were a lot more prevalent. That was how you kept touch. Now it's so much easier. And the advent of technology is so great. But it's really become, as you kind of mentioned, a hellscape. Because people are using it for so much bad. And then people are trying to turn it into something that's just awful. The removal of TweetDeck has pretty much ruined Twitter for a lot of people. And
when the moment I realized that Twitter was not going to recover, I mean, other than LOL when Elon Musk bought it. But the real thing was when I saw Drill left Twitter, I was like, oh, that's it. Game over, man. Game over.
I can't believe Drill left Twitter. Well, hold on. I don't think he's officially left. He was talking about leaving.
I thought he left. I thought
Drill's an OG.
Drill is that's the oh, he's still tweeting, so maybe he hasn't left. But he is not tweeting at the same speed that he previously did. But God, yeah, he said something about let me pull back up because it takes a second because Twitter is no longer good. Sorry to my beloved friends on here. I have to unfollow you all to keep my feet up. I will miss you, but my rate limit will be so nice.
He's so great.
He clearly just absolutely despises what Elon has done to it. Speaking of good tweets, I got 2 here that I want to share with you, and then we'll kind of segue from here, I guess. But one, someone on Twitter, P.E. Moskovitz, I don't know them. They're at _Pem_Pim, said Twitter blue check. Hiroshima was a plot dreamed up by the Jews to false flag America. Threads blue check. What's your favorite number? I feel like that is extremely.
Oh, and you know what? Blue checks used to mean something.
Yeah,
they used to mean something. I used to have one. Used to have one. I earned it. I didn't pay for it, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
And look, I'll survive without a blue check. But the whole point of blue checks was to show who wasn't a scummer and who was real.
Yeah.
And now
it is
scummers. Well, no, there's some. I've thought about getting a blue check only for the fact that you can post longer like tweets and stuff, and the algorithm spikes you to the top, which is important in trying to grow yourself as a person.
Yeah, for you that's important. Media. Yeah.
But I also don't want a check mark next to my name anymore, as long as it's associated with that.
It's no longer a badge of honor or whatever it was. It's kind of harrowing. But speaking of blue checked accounts, I also have another tweet to share with you from Kevin Durant.
Oh, yes.
Who I think I have wrapped around on and actually think owns. Someone retweeted something he said. I don't even remember what it was, but that person said, "You don't think you too grown to be acting like this, bro?" And Kevin Durant quote tweeted it and just said, "I lack maturity."
Phenomenal.
Kevin Durant actually owns. I'm sorry. It's just a fact now. So I got 3 games for you.
Oh.
Smoothly. Did you like that really smooth segue I just did right there of just grabbing the steering wheel and jerking it to one side?
Listen, it was so smooth. It was like watching a Val Venus segment on 2004 Raw.
Good Lord. All right, so I got 3 games for you. We got the cage match game. Someone made a website called Did Kyrie Say It? And, and there's also, the Immaculate Grid. Someone has finally made an NFL version of that if you wanted to do that. But I'll let you steer me here.
All right. Well, I'll let you pick the games. Let's spread them out and let's not start the entire first segment of the show doing games. So let's do one now and we'll save the rest.
All right. Let's do Did Kyrie Say It? All right, so it's just you're going to get 10 statements, and it's timed. That's not good. I'll just send you the link later. Never mind. I'm boarding. That's going to take too long to get through.
You're just gonna have to copy and paste them, and then do them. We'll do that another time.
Yeah. All right. I'll have to figure out a better way to make that work. Pull it out. All right. Cage match time.
Okay.
All right. Cage match game time. I have picked a pretty well rated wrestler, and I'm going to read the shitty reviews on him. This guy's got a 7.58 rating with 1,181 valid votes. And he has steadily been improving since Cage Match launched, I think, or at least this page for him launched in 2007. There's been a couple dips, but for the most part, his numbers are very high here. Let's go with this 1 out of 10 rating from Captain Charisma 1997. This was a December 2021 comment. The most tone-deaf pro wrestler I have ever seen. Seems to be too dense to actually understand anything about the art form he does professionally.
And this wrestler has been on Cage Match since 2007.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark here. Is this Cody Rhodes?
It is Cody Rhodes. I thought that was an extremely Cody Rhodes thing to say. A lot of these negative ones are from 2017. And I think that was his Ring of Honor World Championship run. Is that right? But a lot of push. Or
I believe so, yeah. That was
also
also
bit
when
of
he joined Bullet Club.
Yeah. It was always really weird in Bullet Club. But yeah, there you go. You won the cage match game in one try. So, ta-da! That's the game.
Hey, listen. I am good at the cage match game. I am 2 for 3. The first one I don't think I got.
Yeah,
I did get the last one. So we'll keep track and see how awful I am at that. But let's have a discussion about tickets, Fred. You sent me an interesting tweet, and I will not divulge the name of this Twitter account because I don't want to bury them. But I will mention the tweet.
I forgot about this.
Selling tickets and filling the arena on show day are two entirely different things. And this is talking about how AEW's All In is not a success, and it's the brain dead world that we live in. And the first tweet was quote tweeting a Benno tweet talking about the top paid attendances on record, saying the event hasn't happened yet. Why are fans acting like this event already happened and is a success? Well, let me tell you, unknown Twitter person, according to WrestleTix, this event has sold 74,888 tickets. Now, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Distributed that.
Yes.
I would project at least 88 to 90% of those are sold, not papered, because you're going to have tickets that you give out for promotions. You're going to have tickets that you give out to wrestlers, to staff, so they can bring family and stuff. And then you're going to do stuff like radio giveaways and all those things. Those are normal. Like even like NFL games are papered. There are plenty of promotional tickets. This show has an $8 million gate. Fred, if 0 people showed up to watch this show,
they're still getting that money, man.
And they air the show, they make $8 million, and it's a massive success. Now, you could argue that some PR elements, well, nobody showed up. Like, who cares? They gave me $8 million. That's fine. Like, of course you want them to show up, but I got $8 million. I'm good. Like, people are just, if you want to give an opinion on a product, be educated on the product. Be educated on what is going on and give fair analysis. I'm so sick of people who are incredibly biased in this space. And I may have favorites and I may prefer watching companies like AEW and New Japan. But at the end of the day, I can tell you a spade from a spade. And I will say, Fred, I watched some Mei Suruga from Gato Move the other day based on recommendations from Jumping Bomb Audio's Kelly Harris. Good little wrestler.
Yeah, she is good.
I want to see her more, and he sent me one that I haven't gotten to watch yet. I want to see her more in a ring because I don't know how much of that uniqueness of the space translates. But, like, if you want to give an opinion, educate yourself. Because I'd never seen her before. And I watched her, and I talked with him, and then he totally understood my assessment. Good little worker. Good baby face. But I just feel like there's something missing within the context of that space. And the people who are so tribalistic about this pro wrestling thing, they grew up with only WWE. And I'll be honest, when I first started watching New Japan in like 2017, when Omega and Okada 1 happened, I struggled with the differences. I struggled with the show presentation being match, and the 20 count and how they structured their matches and their epic main events. I struggle with that stuff. But you know what? I adapted and I learned, okay, it's like television. There's more than one way to present a sitcom. There's more than one way to present a drama. There's more than one way to present a soap opera. Mm-hmm. There's more than one way to present football. Just look at all the different networks that air it and how the camera angles are and how they produce their show. It's the same with professional wrestling. And you know what? I grew to appreciate the differences. And I liked it more. But if you're going to give an opinion, educate yourself and really understand what is going on before you make a comment, because the whole tribalistic crap needs to stop. It's not doing anybody any good. It's what's making social media such a hellscape.
Yeah. I actually read an article in Defector yesterday about how Dan Le Batard had Stephen A. Smith on a show and didn't really put him personally on blast, but was like, I hate what you've done to the media landscape, the sports media landscape, because, he's turned all of it into, because everyone's trying to copy his success, it's all been turned into just screaming match shows. And, Bomani Jones just got dropped by HBO like last week, I think it was. And he's always done like a really thoughtful kind of way of approaching sports. And it's a real shame. And I feel like that's kind of reflective of how just about anything gets discussed in our current culture right now, regardless of the medium, though social media is particularly bad at this. And I feel like Twitter is really like the epitome of how bad it's got in the wrestling space. I think it's always been like you can go back and find like really dumb takes on like RSPW way back in the day. But like it's, you know, it's something about the last 10 years where, you know, the whole like, it's not even like you don't have to take what Dave Meltzer reports at face value all the time. Like sometimes he is getting information from people that are working their own angles or trying to get their own word out there. I mean, you can look at the CM Punk situation for a good example of that. But it's very frustrating when he does something like, okay, he rates matches and he barely, like, I have heard of someone or from someone who sat near him at a show once, and Dave's way of doing a star rating was after the match was over, just putting down a star rating, and that's it. Like the people who get obsessed about it and complain about it, they are 100% putting more time and effort into Dave's ratings than what he's done. And it's not to say that like he just makes up a number or whatever, but like, you know, he has his own he has his ideas of what he likes about in a wrestling match, and that is reflected in his ratings. And people that are like, oh, he just gives all these matches high star ratings now, and really wrestling was better back in insert year here. You know, it doesn't stop to think that maybe the style matches these days fits Dave's wants, you know, his not wants, that's probably not the right word of it, but his tastes better. And so he does tend to like those matches better. And what we have in match style in 2023 as compared to like 1997 or 2003 or whatever year you want to put there, at least in America, is a very much faster paced, harder hitting, more big moves oriented style. While back on Nitro, you get some like 6-minute matches that were spent half of which were around like arm wringer or what have you. And Dave obviously prefers one style match better, and that's okay. Yeah, there's also way more wrestling available in 2023. You know, mm-hmm. Dave doesn't have to wait weeks to get tapes of whatever happened in 1995 New Japan or All Japan. And it's all, you know, there's not matches he's not going to get because they didn't make TV, though they would just be put on New Japan World or AJPW.TV or whatever. So I don't know. It's just very, and then you extend that out to like, you know, him reporting on news, and like, it's not hard to read between the lines on what people were saying or what he was reporting people were saying on the Elite Punk side, especially, you know, or issues. Especially when he came out and said that he never talked with the Young Bucks or Adam Page. They never talked to him, and he was hearing from the CM Punk side. And that's not hard to like connect the two dots of, okay, these are who he's hearing from. This is what he's saying. This is the information he's getting and probably where it's coming from. Mm-hmm. But there's still people out there that have convinced themselves that because Dave has been friendly with the Bucks before, that he has 100% taken their side and isn't doing journalism stuff. And it's just, you know, it's absurd. It's just all the way down. And it's in all, you know, you've got the aggregators that they'll read an article and then they'll summarize it wrong or willingly put bad information in there. And it's just all insane, you know, just really, it's kind of sad. It is sad. It's not kind of sad.
What's really hilarious about it is Dave arguably loves WWE more than most people. Mm-hmm. He rates them on I'm not going to say rates them on a curve, but he likes them more than most in the wrestling media space. Like, he thinks the Bloodline is great, and the Bloodline's very good, but I don't think it's this all-time arc. They basically been doing the same things over and over for 2 years. At a certain point, you kind of, it's too long in the tooth. But the matches he really likes, he rates them highly. And this anti-Dave Meltzer thing is honestly just a bunch of crap. It's really inherently frustrating to kind of watch because it's kind of crazy if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, over the past year especially, like, Dave has been pretty critical of AEW at points, usually fairly, I think. And he's praised WWE a lot. And now it's to the point where, like, I don't even think he really, you know, like, he talks about Dominic Mysterio getting heat, where a lot of it is that, you know, to me, it sounds like that hairdryer heat, you know, where they're hitting the button and getting just a lot of, you know, just sound that is not actually being made by the crowd. And that, you know, might be cueing the crowd to go along with it, or it might just, you know, it's hard to really break down the exact relationship there. I do think it's played a role in helping get Dominic over, but, you know, it's still, even his loudest reactions aren't really like what Don Callis is getting, I think, just as a direct comparison.
Yeah. The Don Callis reactions are next level.
Yeah, I think that there's a clear difference between the two, and that's not like, it's just in my opinion, it's part of the production of WWE versus AEW. WWE wants to get those reactions, so what they do is they push the button and it plays in the arena, I guess, and that helps cue up the fans that like to, you know, be part of the show and either do think Dom's a good heel or are willing to play along. I don't know how to attribute that to AEW, where, you know, I also think the shows are the fans, are there to have a good time, and they want to boo Don Callis, but I mean, they aren't booing every heel on the card like they boo Don Callis. Like, it's clear there's something really unique and special going on there, and I don't know, it's just odd to me, but, you know, it seems that both are working in each company, and that's, you know, that's fine. So
yeah, the tribalistic thing, I could yell about it for hours and hours and hours, but it is what it is, and it needs to stop. And speaking of tribalistic, let's go to Kenny Omega.
Sure.
Kenny Omega was interviewed by Uprocks and discussed taking the Tiger Driver 91. And I quote, "People that wanted to shit on something, or people that want to frown upon something, or for people to say, well, if it were me, I wouldn't have done that. I didn't get to where I was by being able to do things that everyone else could do. I realized and I recognized that I do have special talents that maybe not everyone else can do. And this is the safety police argument. Who cares? He wanted to take it. He chose to take it. He understands the risks of taking it. And there we go. Who cares? He wanted to do it. He chose to do it. And if they want to do it, considering they're professional wrestlers, they have done
very
all
high
these
level
things.
Ones too, you know.
Yeah. They've done all these things to protect their bodies. They do the bridging, the neck exercises to strengthen those areas. If he wanted to, hell yeah, go for it. I'm not going to tell you that you can't do something that you feel that you can do. And guess what? He's fine. Why? Because he's Kenny Omega. That's it.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line here. Because of my background, I'm not the biggest inherent fan of blading. It doesn't really bother me, but, you know, I do worry about stuff, and part of why I worry about it is because AEW's never really, you know, come out and said a clear thing about this. But you know, the transmission of bloodborne pathogens like HIV or hepatitis and so forth, when people are doing these blade jobs, I assume that a company like AEW, of its size and finances and everything, are having their workers be blood tested regularly just to make sure that there's no risk of that in the future. But, you know, we also have lived in a time where WWE, granted a completely different company run by a completely different person, but still a large company at the time, basically cheaped out on the rigging that killed Owen Hart, on top of various other bad decisions they made for people's health during the past 30 years. So there is there's just got to be, but at the same time, like the real problem should be the pressures that the company puts on a worker and not the pressures a worker puts on themselves, I think is the real difference here. If someone decides to take a risk, like when Darby Allin's taking these hellacious bumps, am I concerned about his long-term health? To some extent, yeah. Some of these bumps, like remember the Samoa Joe match where he just flew everywhere for Joe and like just took some truly gnarly bumps in that match. Yeah, it was like kind of concerning. I was like, oh man, I hope this kid is going to be okay at age 40, but it's part of his style that he's decided to work. And that's his decision, man. I don't know what else to say there. We're not talking about someone, choosing to do steroids to try to look better for TV. That is, pretty clear. Like that's even, dare I say, a clearer trade-off, because you could argue that maybe they can learn to take bumps right and everything. But, steroids do pose health risks. And, taking pain pills pose health risks too. But I mean, I think it's pretty clear that, we as a culture at least don't want our guys addicted to pain pills and dying when they're 40. We're kind of opposed to that for, the better. Now the argument, I guess, becomes, are these bumps going to lead directly to addiction? And I feel like that's a really hard thing to say to some extent. I think it could potentially lead to it, but I think we also saw a lot of that in WWE when people weren't taking these bumps. Is this worse morally? I don't think so. I think you're trusting these professionals to make the decisions about what they do with their bodies. So I don't know. I feel like there is some extent of well-founded concerns when it comes to these discussions, but they quickly just turn into another branch of tribalism where, see, this would never happen in WWE, and that makes it the safe company, despite the fact that like the injury rate in WWE is pretty high at times, despite working a air quotes safer style here. Like Bayley, I think her body got wrecked and she still hasn't recovered from it because she was having to go down to Florida to train for the, in preparation of them going back on the road full time after the pandemic. It's not always, the extreme bumps that lead to the big injuries. Sometimes it's just benign stuff. So I don't know. That's kind of my rambling thoughts on it.
Yeah, and I think it's important because Bryan Danielson broke his arm in the match against Kazuchika Okada with an elbow drop. And he said in the presser afterwards that John Cena tore his pec on a hip toss. Like, it happens. Like, athletes get injured in the weirdest ways. Mm-hmm. You step wrong, you can pop your ACL as a football player. Yeah. Those kinds of things happen. And I think you have to understand that. I want people to understand those elements. And if you can understand those elements, that's not my fault. Like, I want there to be this understanding of X, Y, and Z. This is a dangerous sport. People get hurt. It doesn't have to be a dangerous move. It can be anything. Like, Vince McMahon tore both of his quad tendons walking to the ring.
Yeah.
Like, it happens. Deal with it. Shut up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of the deal. And if it bothers you, I mean, I guess don't watch. I hate to say that. It feels very reductive, but it's the truth. Is there's always going to be a risk inherent to professional wrestling, even if you're working like it's a Whipper Billy Watson match from back in the day. There's still going to be some risk to it. So it's just part of how it works. That's just kind of my take on it. Football is not safe, but it's the most popular sport in America. That's just the deal, man. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And people need to get over it. That's really the long and the short of it. Let's burn through some more news, and then we have a lot to talk about with these two shows. Diamante has received a full-time AEW contract. She came in with Eva Lee's, and we all know how that situation turned out a couple years ago. But she's been working a lot of Ring of Honor, and good for her. She's a good add to the women's division. I don't think there's a lot of like high-end upside, but she's a good worker, and you can never have enough of those, especially with how scarce women's talent is in the United States.
Yeah, I think she's a really solid worker. Kind of reminds me of that regard of Serena Deeb, who I haven't. If she's working, is she hurt? I haven't thought about Serena Deeb in a hot minute. And
I actually think she is.
Oh man, that's a bummer. She was having a decent run there. Although I know some people. She hasn't worked since last October, so I am very quick on the uptake here. I need to update my entry spreadsheet. But yeah, I put Diamante in the same area as Deeb, as just a very solid in-ring worker who I think has a good place to fill in AEW.
Yeah, I would agree completely on that front. And
Cultaholics had a story from last month that basically said, yeah, she's still gone and no one knows really why. There's some people think she's hurt. So, we're just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's hope she comes back soon, because Serena Deeb was a great add to the division. And I think she would be a really fun foil for Statlander. I think they had a few fun matches back in the day. But we'll find out kind of what that ends up looking like long term. Hopefully she comes back, but we'll see. We will see, and that's part of the thing here is there's just a lot of unknown with so many little nuanced things, and this is one of them. All right, moving forward. Speaking of contracts, Trench's contract was not renewed. He never wrestled. We talk about stealing money, Marvez. How about stealing money, Trench? Trench, if you don't remember who he is, he was the tattooed man that was brought in by sort of Strickland for the Mogul affiliates, and they ditched that right away. And Parker Boudreaux, I think, is still under contract, but he's just not. I think he's doing maybe ROH stuff. But in the meantime, he has moved on and joined the embassy and become the Mogul embassy. And Trench, maybe he'll go back to minor league baseball. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a shame in a sense, because I think that he definitely had a look that was going to make him, be potentially fill in a spot somewhere. But he just the whole Mogul embassy thing, Mogul. Mogul affiliates. Sorry, just felt like it was dead in the water as soon as it was launched. I still think it really did hurt Swerve Strickland quite a bit. And Trench, we can't speak on what he did in the ring because he never did anything. But it just didn't feel like he got it necessarily. But at the same time, I can't say that definitively just because, he didn't do anything to prove it or not. I do want to say that I do think it's a good strategy for AEW. I've said this before, but to just grab a couple guys that are like, kind of like him or whoever, Enriel Howard, who became Lash Legend. These players that were like, not at the highest level in athletics, but like, sniffing it, a little away from it, because Enriel Howard was a second round selection in the WNBA who pretty clearly was not going to have much of a run in the league, most likely. And Trench was a baseball player who got stuck in AAA and kind of never really played well enough to advance from there. I think maybe trying to find guys along that talent level and seeing if they work out to be a good pro wrestler is a reasonable low risk, high potential reward move that AEW should continue to make. Maybe you will just get weird cases of like guys popping up in non-wrestling roles for 2 months and then disappearing forever, but that's not the worst thing, really. So
yeah, I agree. Let's move on here. This is an interesting one. Malachi Black said on Bobby Fish's podcast that he requested to be on Collision full time. Fred, do you have any context of that?
I could try to pull it back up, but basically the quote that I saw on F4W is that Black said that I requested to be strictly on Collision because I don't want people to get the pick. It's like, no, Saturday night, I get to see the House of Black. That's what I wanted. Because if I give you the option for Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, you're going to go, it doesn't really matter. So I guess the idea in his mind being that, if you know that it's going to be on Collision, then people who like the House of Black will tune into Collision. I don't know that that's necessarily worked out how people would have thought so far, just because of the falling rating for Collision, but also that rating was going to fall. Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of imagining Malachi Black and Bobby Fish having conversations. It kind of makes me laugh.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie, it makes me laugh too. There's so much funny with it, but you know what? Maybe he's just the kind of guy who thinks Collision fits his style more than Dynamite, which I don't necessarily disagree. I think with what he wants to do, Collision works. It works really well, and yeah, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. If he wants to do that, by all means, go on ahead. And yeah, like some people are just going to want to work Saturdays instead of Wednesdays. And that's fine. Darby Allin told the Hamilton crowd that Sting was doing great, which is a good sign. Because Sting obviously had that wild match last week in the tornado tag with Chris Jericho. Yeah, Jim Ross, this is interesting, believes he suffered a concussion on the same day as the premiere of Collision. I think he had a fall.
Yeah, he's apparently tripped on his CPAP machine and hit his head on a bedside table, which tremendously dangerous. I'm just glad he's okay. I mean, that he was apparently bleeding pretty good too, and then just went back to bed in some extremely JR shit right there. But that yeah, I mean,
JR shit.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've been critical of his talent level in the modern era these days, but I don't want the guy to die. Obviously, I don't want him to have health issues. So I'm hopeful that he will continue to be okay and continue to improve. And if that leads to him being on AEW TV, then okay.
Good way to put it. Hopefully, he's doing okay. Battle of the Belts 7 will air after Collision on Saturday, July 15th at 10 p.m. Eastern. I understand why they want to do this Battle of the Belts thing, but they haven't made it worth anything. And I think that they need to scrap it. What are we doing?
I mean, if they're getting more money, then obviously they're going to keep doing it. But
then do something more with it.
They should. I fully agree. We've been pretty critical of it since it launched, but here we are. I don't expect that it will change ever. It's going to just be like not very special edition of Rampage. I think going forward, and that's just the deal, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm not optimistic about getting significantly better in any way.
I'm not either. But it is what it is. Stadium Stampede mode is coming soon to Fight Forever. It's going to be a free download, and it's going to be a Battle Royal. Now, Battle Royal gimmicks in the space of video games have been kind of dying out. I think this one has a chance, Fred, and here's why. It's different. It's pro wrestling. It's not
Yeah.
guns. I'm going to shoot you and you're trying to shoot me. It's pro wrestling. And I think adding that to this with the stadium stampede element, I think it's going to be fun. And we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, he it looks very interesting. I think it's very unique. I saw a clip of it from the PR people on Twitter earlier, and it just looks like sheer chaos and frankly good. It should. You've got Scorpio Sky jumping off someone's jumping off a tier of a stadium, someone driving a horse over people, someone else driving a golf cart over people, someone firing a cannon to knock Yuka Sakazaki off of the goalpost. This looks fantastic. I can't wait to see just how dumb this thing's going to be, and frankly, the dumber it is, the better it'll be, I think. But yeah.
Oh hell yeah! It's gonna be fun, and we will be playing it. That's it for the news, but I do want to point this out. VOW's own Jeff Martin, who is a comic book extraordinaire, was at the Edmonton Dynamite last night, and he said that Omega came out after Rampage, and he talked about the fifth man, because they did make it official for Blood and Guts. It's 5-on-5. Now, we don't know who the fifth on the Blackpool Combat Club side is going to be, and we don't know who the fifth on the Elite side is going to be. They kind of made reference to it maybe being Chris Jericho on either side, with Don Callis asking him to join his family. Callis obviously having the ties with Konosuke Takeshita and the Blackpool Combat Club right now. Omega said that he traveled before Forbidden Door to another country, not Canada, not the United States, to go find and talk to recruit that fifth member. The obvious answer here, Fred, is Kota Ibushi. That's the obvious answer. How that complicates things with their partner, I don't know. But they did allow a DDT wrestler. I mean, he's now an AEW contract wrestler, but he's still DDT adjacent in Takeshita on Forbidden Door. How would they feel about Kota Ibushi being on AEW television? Would they care? Is this like it's a very interesting dynamic. That doesn't necessarily mean that Ibushi's ever going to be on New Japan programming. But going on AEW, do you want to upset your partner by doing so? There's some interesting elements here. And if it's not Ibushi, as a second part of the question, Fred, who in the world could it be? Like Antonio Honda, which would be kind of hilarious in Blood and Guts, I'm not going to lie. But it's very interesting, and I'll turn it over to you.
My guess would be that it's going to be like Shibata. I think it's going to be a situation where it's someone that used to work for New Japan, but now basically doesn't. I mean, Ibushi obviously doesn't. I don't really think, from what I've heard, it doesn't sound like Shibata really has a direct tie to New Japan. Like maybe he still has a contract that's technically active, but he doesn't wrestle for them. He is not part of the LA Dojo training, if what I recall is correct. So he's just not part of their deal. He's just basically showing up on AEW and Ring of Honor. So my assumption is it'd be like that you would end up with a situation where basically they're like, well, he's not our guy, but we're not CMLL. We're not in a position where we hate these guys so much that we're going to threaten to break our relationship if they show up on our shared show, like CMLL would with a guy like Roosh, for example, I'm sure. So I don't think it's a real political concern. Like now, if we find out differently, I guess we'll see. But given how good things are between AEW and New Japan right now, and I think they're quite good, I'd be shocked if there is some kind of issue if Ibushi is brought into AEW and New Japan takes umbrage with that. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think they'll just probably be like, all right, whatever, man, have fun.
I'm looking at it from more of this perspective, and it relates back to Tony Khan and television negotiations, where he explicitly said that he never tried to discuss a television deal for Ring of Honor outside of Warner Brothers Discovery. Would he just not want to sign Ibushi out of respect for his partner, New Japan, who cut him because Ibushi claimed they were run by Yakuza?
Yeah, that was a whole big thing.
It's an interesting element to this whole thing
Sure.
because he's shown and past precedent that he doesn't want to upset those he's partnered with. So would
Sure.
he even try to bridge that gap? That, I think, is the interesting question here, not necessarily New Japan's side, because I think you're right. I don't think New Japan would necessarily be worried, but Tony Khan's trepidations about even trying to bridge that gap is the interesting play.
I don't think he has much trepidation. What I assume happened is that, once it kind of became a possibility, that he talked about it with New Japan. It's like, is this going to be an issue? And given the fact that we may be moving closer to it, you have to assume that the answer is no, it's not going to be an issue. If there was an issue, I don't think they'd move forward with it. I think it would just be like, getting sorry, but we can't bring him in because it's going to mess up our whole relationship with New Japan. Since that's seemingly not the case, they're advancing, so that's seemingly not the case is what I want to say. Now, this is all speculation and trying to read tea leaves, but this is just what makes sense to me. Otherwise, any other situation is kind of illogical to me. It just doesn't add up. Like, if there was an issue, I don't see why Tony Khan, who clearly loves working with New Japan, and after the success for Forbidden Door, last week, I don't see why he would want to jeopardize that. If he thought he was jeopardizing it, this wouldn't be something that would be advancing. Like it seemingly is.
Yeah, there's a lot of different nuances with this whole conversation, and I'm intrigued to kind of see how it plays out. And I think Ibushi would be an interesting one, but Fred, who else could it be?
I don't really have a good answer. Like, it could always just be a guy from New Japan. Like, it could it could literally be Ishii. It could be Suzuki. Doesn't quite seem right given how Minoru Suzuki, given how he's been presented by AEW as a pretty consistent heel, aligned with Chris Jericho. But I mean, you could pull in just about anyone from, for example, New Japan, but the obvious connection would be, or obvious guy would be Ibushi. If it's not Ibushi, then you start to think a little bit about other guys that were in Bullet Club around that time, and I just don't think it's really, none of these guys feel right. Like, are they going to bring in Chase Owens or Bad Luck Fale? Like, it doesn't add up. Like, Yujiro Takahashi, get the Tokyo Pimp in there? I don't think so. So, barring some swerve that it's just a random big star from New Japan or whatever, because he is a big star there, I don't see it being anyone but Ibushi or Jericho. But it's with the seeds planted, at least. There's very much a possibility it'll be someone else, I guess, just in terms of business. But what Omega was teasing would not add up if it came. They were waiting for that fifth surprise person to come out, and it's Hiromu Takahashi, or Shingo Takagi. It'd just be weird to be like, oh, okay, well, I mean, it's cool that he's here, but I don't get the storyline connection.
So we have to eliminate anybody who's in the G1.
Right.
Because
exactly.
Otherwise you'd have Eddie Kingston in this match.
Yeah, they would just use Eddie instead.
Yeah. So my brain went to maybe Okada because they teamed up at New Year's Dash. And Okada in a Blood and Guts match would be fun.
Yeah, but he's in the G1.
I know, but it's so out of the element of anything he's really ever done. That's where my mind went to, and that's why I'm trying to have this conversation. Looking at everything, I really think that it's going to be Ibushi, but I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up being a guy that was in Bullet Club with him. How great would Bad Luck Fale be? In a different kind of way.
Yeah.
I really do think it's going to be Ibushi. But
comedy answer, Cody Rhodes.
Ooh, that'd be funny.
Not going to happen. Like literally impossible, but it's funny to think about.
Nothing's impossible if you try hard enough. All right, let's talk some kind of big picture themes here. The Owen Hart tournament we now have our semifinals set on the men's side. Powerhouse Hobbs versus Ricky Starks, which is kind of a continuation of the feud that they had over the course of the last year, and CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, which is a continuation of a feud that they had back in early 2000s of Ring of Honor. And they did play this up on television. Punk has never beaten Samoa Joe. For those who didn't know about Punk's history with Joe, I thought that was really important. And I think Joe's beating him. And they making such a big point about it on Collision is reference to that, because now Joe, it's not going to hurt Punk, because everybody knows that Joe is this monster who has never lost to Punk. And now you have this long-term play where he has to try and overcome him. I think that's the story.
Yeah, and I think I do think it's going to be a Joe win on Saturday, and then that leads to a future match between the two. I'm sorry to go back to it, but I just realized what the funniest answer would actually be for who the fifth man to help the Elite out because of a Bullet Club connection would be Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, please. Please.
I just remembered he was in Bullet Club at that time that Kenny was the leader.
Oh yes, I would.
Woo, woo, woo. God.
Oh my gosh! Listen, please, just give it to me.
Sorry to pump myself, but
a really funny answer would be AJ Styles.
Yeah, but impossible because of contracts, most likely.
Yeah.
But the idea of just Jeff Jarrett coming out in an maybe an NWO shirt, but a Bullet Club shirt, throwing up the Too Sweet to the Young Bucks. I don't know. That's just very funny to me. Anyways.
Yeah. I think what we're going to end up seeing is Samoa Joe versus Ricky Starks, and I bet Ricky Starks wins it because...
Really? You think so? I would guess Samoa Joe would win that.
I think you can, but I don't think you have to. I think when you're not really pushing a guy like Ricky Starks hard, who you want to be a push commodity just because there's only so much you can do, I think giving him the Owen Hart win makes the most sense. Joe doesn't need it. Ricky Starks, I think, needs something. And I think this is a great something to give him.
Yeah, I think that... you're not wrong. I think it would help Starks more than Joe, but I think Joe is in a position where it makes a lot more sense than Starks, because I think it would help build to the CM Punk match. That's obviously the rematch that would obviously come in that circumstance. While Starks would just be like, "Hey, I want it, cool," and okay, cool. Next, what's next? I think from kayfabe, from storyline reasons, it makes just a lot more sense for Joe to end up winning it, in my mind.
I could see that. And that's the great part. Any of these four guys could win it. They could give it to Powerhouse Hobbs. They're giving more TV time to QTV, and we'll see how long Hobbs is with QTV.
Yeah.
Just because, QT Marshall, Johnny Television, who cares? Harley Cameron has a chance to be a star. I don't know if she's good in the ring. I've never seen her in the ring, but
I haven't either.
She's got the charisma. She's got a good look, and she understands how to interact inside the squared circle. There's potential there for a star in some capacity. But if she can work, oh, buddy, you could have something big on your hands. I just have no idea if she's a worker or how good she is. She's got the rest of it.
Yeah,
Like
she definitely comes across like a star in personality.
The segment with her and Anthony Bowens where she's hitting on him, and then he just tells her, "I'm gay," and gets the loudest pop I've heard in a while.
Yeah.
Tremendous. Absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, I still haven't watched all that segment. I saw that part of it, but yeah, I guess we'll see where this goes, but it feels like what worst case scenario is what, like, she basically turns into what Julia Hart is now, like, not the goth part, obviously, but like just a more than capable outside presence who may be able to work a little bit, like, even if she's absolutely the worst person on the roster in the ring, just don't have her wrestle. It's not 2016 WWE where they had that really weird fixation on making Lana become a wrestler when it was clear that she wasn't going to work. Like, I think AEW would be perfectly happy to just keep her as a personality.
Oh, and that's if she's only a personality. I know
you're right, exactly. Worst case.
I don't know if she's a worker at all.
Yeah.
And that's just me trying to extrapolate and ask questions because I don't know. We'll have to, maybe I'll hit up a couple of our Australian wrestling experts from Australia in Voices of Wrestling and see what they have to say. But let's transition over to the women's Owen Hart. Ruby Soho got the win last night on Dynamite over Britt Baker. Nefarious interference. I thought it was pretty brilliant laying the original Owen Hart title belt out on the turnbuckle and then getting the win there, utilizing a roll up and obviously the hand with Toni Storm. And I thought it was pretty clever. And then she's facing off against Sky Blue, who I'm going to be honest, Fred. I think Sky Blue is winning this thing. Because the other side is Willow Nightingale, and I can't remember who came from the other side of that bracket. But like, Willow just lost a strong title. You could use this as a big push for her, but they've really given Sky Blue a lot of television time over the last few weeks. I think. Athena.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get a Sky Blue Owen Hart Memorial win. And then maybe you have Sky Blue because of that. Or you could do Willow Nightingale Athena in Ring of Honor if Willow beats her. And then that could be your Ring of Honor Women's World Championship match at Death Before Dishonor in a couple of weeks. There's a lot of elements here that I'm very intrigued by. And that I think Sky Blue ends up winning.
I actually think it's going to be a Ruby. I think it's going to be Ruby.
Interesting.
Soho. I think it just feels to me like she it's a little too soon for Sky, that they are getting very much behind her. I don't think it's going to be either. I mean, I guess it could be Willow Nightingale. They don't seem as high on her at the moment as Sky Blue, which is my hesitancy. I don't think it's going to be Athena. She doesn't need it. She's doing perfectly fine over in the Ring of Honor. I'm going to stiff everyone to death division she's created for herself, essentially. So, I think it does. I think it's going to be one of the other three. Willow, I think will be in the final, so that there will be that. But it just feels to me right now that, like, Ruby as part of the Outcast is a much bigger deal in AEW than either Willow or Sky Blue is as a face. Now, that being said, maybe they're using this to try to build a new contender to have a title match with Toni Storm in a little bit. And either Blue or Willow Nightingale would be a pretty obvious pick in that case. I just don't have a good feeling for how this one's going to end. I think it's pretty wide open in between those three. And given that, I'm just kind of like, we'll see. I don't feel comfortable making it. I don't think there's a lock, is what I should say. If I did guess, now that I think about it a little more, maybe it makes sense for Ruby to do the job to put someone over and set them up as a future Tony opponent. So in that case, it would be Willow, right? Because Athena wouldn't make sense in that spot. Sky would be in the semifinal against Ruby. So I think maybe it will be Willow. I don't know. I think it's an intriguing situation.
It is an intriguing situation. I'll give a little bit of pushback on the Ruby thing. I don't know if they're necessarily ready to, obviously with the inclusion of Dr. Martha Hart and her with the company. I don't know if they're going to be willing to put it on that kind of a heel yet. Maybe that's just me overthinking. And obviously Tony Khan and AEW have really repaired the Hart families at that segment of the Hart family's relationship with professional wrestling. Maybe that's not an issue. Maybe I'm overthinking it. It could be. And I don't know if Tony would want necessarily to have that on that kind of a heel. It's not hey, I'm just a jackass. Like, they're pretty extra and they're over the top. I've been known to overthink things, Fred. You know this. We've had a lot of discussions, but that's something that I really think about.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, but I just don't have I don't think it's a clear call. I don't think it's quite like the men's tournament where I feel pretty confident at this point that it's going to be a Samoa Joe win to help set up the CM Punk follow up. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Let's keep things going. Let's talk about MJF and Adam Cole. And MJF and Adam Cole is a very interesting relationship between them.
Yes, very much so.
They have the tag match, and MJF is trying to get Cole to cheat, and eventually, doing an abdominal stretch, grabs his arm, and the ref catches him. Yada yada, whatever. And then MJF gets a hot tag. Cole wins with the last shot when MJF wanted to come back in, and then he has a birthday celebration where Cole ends up smashing MJF's face into cake, and this is getting more absurd.
Yes, it's getting very goofy.
Is Cole going to fully turn on MJF and tell him to F off, or are we getting some kind of MJF manipulation play at the end of this? It's a very unique device that Tony Khan is using here, and it's one that he really hasn't utilized much before. I don't know if he's done something like this before in such a long-term format, because we're going on 3 weeks now, because the match that they had was 3 weeks ago yesterday. We're recording this on Thursday. And then they were the blind eliminator tag tournament, and then they had the segments last week, and then now this week. MJF was impressed that Cole could bench I think it was 315. It was 645-pound weights, so the 270 plus the bar is 45. So yeah, 315. He just benched it 10 times like a champ, and he's just like, whoa! Like it feels like you're going to get some kind of chicanery from him, but I have no idea where this is going. Well, how do you feel about this? Like, one, do you even like it?
I think it's funny. I don't know how effective it is as a world title program, but it amuses me, so I can give it that much. I think MJF is really great in these, these being kind of a aloof jerk kind of segments. But he's the world champion, and the question becomes: is that a effective storyline to tell here? It is very sports entertaining. I know some people aren't a fan of that. But I mean, the match wasn't anything special. It was just, like a bog standard match, with all the shenanigans mixed in. But I couldn't help but laugh quite a bit at just the interplay between MJF and Cole, and both after the match and in their little pre-tape segment. All that said, I think there's serious questions about how effective this is as a feud builder in AEW. I mean, I don't think it's going to fail by any chance. I don't know that it's just going to be a super hot program. I think as far as the MJF as a world champion ones, you have to go back to the Bryan Danielson one. And that was obviously a very different feel. That one succeeded. the 4 pillars, I think, was a failure. I think that's fair to say. Not because of MJF necessarily, but just because of, I don't think the other 3 were ready for prime time in that kind of role, especially with some of the angles they were running. Adam Cole is capable of these things. He hasn't looked bad. He's been entertaining along with MJF. The question remains, how does this build to a world championship match? And I think the obvious answer is someone's got to turn on someone. But if, because of how this works, you're either making your top babyface challenger look like an idiot because he didn't see MJF coming, although they've done some lampshading that he is smart enough to know that MJF will turn on him and can't be trusted. Or alternatively, your mastermind heel, MJF, is made to look like a fool yet again. And that kind of plays into the whole kind of the feel between the two characters that it is, it's kind of like Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, where MJF's Fudd and Bugs Bunny or Adam Cole is Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny just keeps tricking Elmer Fudd. And so far in this feud, there's been 2 big cases of Adam Cole just tricking MJF, 3 if you include the birthday cake, which I don't. But convincing MJF to give him a title qualifier match. I think that's what the 30-minute time limit match was. And alternatively, putting his belt on the line against Hiroshi Tanahashi. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation to me. I can see how this plays into that. I also don't know if it's the right thing in AEW. Like, not to say that AEW is just a pure, MMA inspired promotion or some nonsense like that. But it is usually the goofy feuds are not in the world title picture. And so this is a little weird. I don't know. I'm still kind of working through it. I guess, the next couple weeks will obviously kind of reveal more about this, but I don't know. I don't know. It's too early to say if it's working or not in my mind. I don't think it's obviously not working. I don't think it's a super success at this stage. The crowd was into the post-match celebration segment, which they should have been, because that was pretty great in my mind. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see how this all plays out. Is a not a particularly great answer, but that's my answer right now. It's too early to call in my mind.
It is too early to call, and I do like, as you said, the lampshading of Cole knowing that MJF is just this piece of trash, and he knows he can't trust him. But it feels like he's starting to buy in a little bit, and that shade of gray is interesting. But I don't really like this. Like, we don't have to do this, but I'm willing to give it time, because Tony Khan has done a lot of really good things, and obviously MJF is a great mind for the business, and not everything's going to hit, but he's earned the benefit of the doubt with me to see where this goes. And I think that's the number one thing. All right, let's
since we're kind of doing the overarching notes here, what do you think about basically just in totality the last episode of Collision and the last episode of Dynamite? I guess we'll start with Collision. Did you think it was a good show, a bad show, a middling show?
Let's do this. I was going to write an article about this, but for the Patreon, Joe Lanza wrote something very similar to what I was going to write, so I'm not going to write it anymore. The idea of Collision and the idea of Dynamite are so different that I think it's great for this company. WCW had Nitro, and then they released Thunder. WWE had Raw and SmackDown. Essentially, they were the same shows. There was really not a style difference in how those shows were presented. There wasn't a real difference in the wrestling. Dynamite and Collision feel like different shows under the same umbrella. Like the AL and NL before they made the universal DH rule.
Yeah.
Where you would have a lot of small ball in the NL. You would sacrifice bunt to move guys over to second or third base, and you try and get small ball runs, and then you'd have to figure out how you're going to pinch hit for the pitcher and all those other nuanced details. Where in the American League, no, we have a DH. Who cares? We're just going to swing. And I think even though they're playing the same sport in the same league, it was different. And I think that's how you can kind of compare Dynamite and Collision. Collision feels like a modern version of Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW Saturday Night. Like it feels different. It feels much more cohesive in its production. It feels a lot less frantic. It feels smooth. Kevin Kelly is this is an interesting one because I don't think the announce team is great on Collision. I think Kevin Kelly is a great announcer, but he needs more from his partner to really be great on Collision. Because I just think he's setting up perfectly, but then he's also trying to overcompensate because Nigel's not really doesn't feel like his heart's in it. I think that's the best way to put it. He's just not all the way there as far as being fully invested in that position. And I think you're losing something as far as how the cohesiveness of that announce table works. Once you get that cohesiveness, I think that announce team is going to be great, but it's not there yet. And I don't think that's any fault of Kevin Kelly, but Kevin is also so great at what he does with New Japan that I also think he's dealing with, this is just me speculating, a little bit of a transition in style because it is different. And that's fine. We're only a few weeks in. This stuff's going to be ironed out, but the graphics they're different. The set is different.
Yeah.
The presentation of the show, different.
I love the opening promo gimmick. That feels like it's right off of like Saturday Night Main Event.
I like that too. It is really cool. And there's so many little things that differentiate itself while still continuing the same storylines, while being the same wrestling company. I like those elements. I like Dynamite. It's frantic. It's just a breakneck pace every week. You're go, 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 go. It is modern day pro wrestling. As you can potentially hear a leaf blower in the background as somebody's working on their lawn. It feels like what they believe modern wrestling should be, and Collision is what modern wrestling could be with an old school flavor to it. I like that they're different even though they're the same. And I think that's really fun because there's so many unique elements to it.
Yeah. I think that one of the coolest things they did on Rampage was the Mark Henry promos. Like those worked really well, and then they kind of stopped doing them for seemingly no real reason. I think, and so I think with the first couple weeks they were using non-English speaking talent, but still, it's like there's ways you can work around that. It felt like a real shame that they moved away from that. And I think that's part of why Rampage didn't really succeed. Not the major reason, but a reason is that it just felt like Junior Dynamite. And I think that they're avoiding that same mistake with Collision. And I think it's working well so far.
Yeah. I like that. I feel like I'm getting a different show. And we talked about this. And like I remember as a kid watching Velocity thinking, oh, sweet, I'm getting a whole new hour of wrestling. Now I'm not getting a whole new hour of wrestling. I'm getting half of a SmackDown recap and a couple of and like a decent main event match with a couple squashes. Like that's what Velocity was. And I thought I was getting something different. That's kind of what Rampage has become, except you're getting more actual ring time. The average ring time in Rampage is 32 minutes. Collision is right now at, I think, an hour and 1. Dynamite's at 54. Chris Samsa of sportofprowrestling.com at the Chris Samsa on Twitter. You've probably heard that if you watch any New Japan. Sent me a link. Here we go. Dynamite's average of 54:41 wrestling time per episode. Collision's 1 hour and 17 seconds. Rampage, 32:57. So per minute, there's more wrestling on Rampage than there are on the other two shows. Obviously, it's a little bit more condensed, but it kind of shows you the dichotomy of like kind of what you're getting on Rampage. It's not a velocity show, but it feels like it. It really does. Because it doesn't really feel like most weeks you're getting something new, something special. You're getting what used to be dark.
Yeah.
And that's inherently frustrating.
Yeah.
And I like that these are different shows. I like that these are fun. And Collision is worthwhile having on my TV on Saturday nights. Rampage is not on Fridays. Like I don't watch Rampage live. I've watched Collision live a couple times. But I can't do it. I need more. And to kind of wrap this all up, I like the fact that Collision feels unique. It feels like its own entity, but it doesn't stray away from the basic core principles of all elite wrestling, which is it's a wrestling show, not a show about wrestling.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think they've done a good job of differentiating them, and I think that'll help Collision succeed in kind of a tough spot.
Yeah. All right, let's get a couple more things. Then I know you've got one more game for me. I want to talk about Hook and Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy. Sorry, we have to call him Jack Perry now. He is not Jungle Boy. Thank God. I was waiting for that day. He looks like a Hollywood douchebag. Perfect presentation. He is still getting comfortable talking. He's still getting comfortable with that aspect of it. This past week on Dynamite, he straight up said, hey, Hook's trying to attack me. No, if you want to do it, you have to do it in the ring. And he said he was going to Tony Khan's office to demand an FTW World or Heavyweight title match. Well, the FTW title isn't an AEW sanctioned title, so I don't understand how that works. Am I overthinking again? Because
whatever. I don't think it really matters. It's the FTW belt. It's like the 9th title in AEW. So
yeah, that's a fair point. I like it. I also like that Hook is continuously going after him, and I think Jungle Boy should win it. Jungle Boy needs something to kind of take him over the top, and I think this could easily be it. There is a lot of fun element to what is going on here, and I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen moving forward with Jack Perry and how he's going to evolve with how everything is currently set up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's turned into a pretty good feud. Perry still has some work to do in terms of improving as a personality, but I mean, I thought he did better this week than he did last week. Maybe we ixnay the Anglais Omo praise for a few months for him. I don't know that we need to send him out there cutting like a Raw style 8, what feels like a half-hour promo, but on Dynamite is like 7 minutes. I don't think that that's really what he can do well at this point in time, and you should book to accentuate the strengths, not the positives. He did pretty well coming across as just like a jerk in that short segment where he was interviewed before Hook ran him off. I don't know. I am cautiously optimistic that this will help him out, that he'll be able to grow into this role. And I think it was desperately needed because I thought he was getting really stale as the Jungle Boy. Because at this point is he 30 yet? Is that right? But he's just in a different place than he was in 2019. That's all.
Yeah, he is in a different place than he was then, and I think that place is good. I think it is a good place to be. He's obviously has the backing of Tony Khan, and he's growing and developing as a professional wrestler, which is good. I'm intrigued to see how he continues to grow. Honestly, I think he needs more time with Christian. Just lock him in a house with Christian for 2 weeks. Have them watch tapes.
I guess the counter argument would be he was already hanging out with Christian for so long.
He needs more. He needs more.
He does need more. Yeah.
I'm trying to think here. There's one other thing I was going to talk about, and
there's something I want to talk about, which is
let's go with it.
How great was Omega Yuta? I thought that was a really fantastic match. I went 4.5 stars on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I liked it a lot.
I went 4.25. I thought it was good, but it's not going to make my Dynamite dozen.
I'd have to think about it for the Dynamite dozen. I don't know that it'd be terribly high on it, but it might sneak into like the 12 spot. I just thought it really rocked. I think I would definitely put that above Andretti and Jericho as good of a story as that was. Might just stay there, but I thought it was a lot of fun. Obviously, Omega's fantastic, and I really do think Yuta is looking like a future star over the past 4 months.
They're positioning himself like he is a future star,
and he's been living up to it too.
He has been. I thought it was a really nice touch that Yuta won off interference and then used the seatbelt clutch at Double or Nothing.
Yeah,
Kenny was ready for it. You got the interference from Konosuke Takeshita, and then the seatbelt clutch. Well, Omega was ready for it, and he kicked out. He knew it was coming.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really nice touch, and Omega just destroyed him. They played it off really well, where it looks like he was going for a moonsault. Omega comes out, like punches him right in the chin, and then doesn't have to lift him up for the one-wing angel, just has to hold him up. And that he landed on his neck there. That was gnarly.
Yeah.
Like, ooh. And really good end of the show. You had Castagnoli and Takeshi to go out and come beat up Omega. And then you had the Bucks and Hangman and Adam Page with chairs. But the Dark Order takes the chair away from Hangman Page. And you get the stare down as they wrestled on Rampage in a rematch from last week's Dynamite. And that kicked off the 100th episode of Rampage. Can you believe that? 100 episodes of Rampage.
And they stopped mattering about 40 ago. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels like I appreciate that they've got the Bucks and Page wrestling on it, but it does feel like a very Rampage card and not like we're going to try to make this a big deal. And I mean, it's just there. I don't know what else to say at this point. Like, it's just Rampage is just going to be what it is, and it's not going to change. So,
yeah, and that kind of is what it is. But that's all we have today, Fred. AEW is in an interesting place, and we're going to see how things kind of grow and progress moving forward as we inch toward all in and all out. But Fred, before we end up going today, you have one more game.
Yeah, so you probably have seen the Immaculate Grid, where you get the 3 teams or classifications of baseball players across the top and then 3 across the side, and you're supposed to fill in a guy in one slot for each combination. And someone has come up with a football equivalent, and I wanted to put you on the spot as the football knower, and see how you would do on today's NFL crossover grid.
Let's do it.
All right, cool. So you got the 3 columns and the 3 rows across the top. Your 3 teams are the Cincinnati Bengals, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Seattle Seahawks. And across the side, you have the Cleveland Browns, the New England Patriots, and as a curveball, the Texas Longhorns.
Ooh.
So I'm going to send this over to you just for your reference.
I actually pulled it up, so
okay, cool, even better.
Okay, so we're gonna go top right. Browns and Seahawks. Artavius Mingo.
That is correct. Browns
and Chiefs.
And also remember that a guy can only be used once on the grid.
Yep. Seahawks and Patriots, Brandon Browner, the cornerback. I know that's right because
That is
Browner.
correct.
Texas and Seattle, Poona Ford, Poona Ford.
Yep, correct.
Okay. Now, what?
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, be sure to not pick anyone that like changed over from one team to the other this offseason, because that won't count unless they've actually played as of right now.
Yeah. I did yesterday's, and I think it was yesterday's. It might have been the day before. It was Bills and Cardinals. I put in Cody Ford, the offensive lineman drafted by the Cardinals, then 2 years later traded to the Bills, played for both teams. It didn't register. It pissed me off.
Oh, that sucks.
It did. Texas and Kansas City is Jamal Charles.
He was really great for a while there.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct, by the way.
Patriots and Chiefs, Matt Castle.
I thought he was going to be like a superstar with the Chiefs, because I am very good at football and definitely am not an idiot. All right, you got that one correct. 5 out of 9 so far. You have 4 guesses left.
Okay, this is where I start to get in the weeds. I know there's crossover between the Chiefs and the Browns, but I'm trying to figure it out. I feel like there's crossover at quarterback, and that I'm trying to narrow it down. Bengals with Texas. Oh, Joseph Asai.
Joseph.
No. Osai. Ossai.
All right. Okay. All right. I was thinking Joseph Adai. That is correct. Osai played for both.
Yeah. Joseph Adai played at LSU.
The Colts,
first round
right?
pick of the Colts. Yep. Okay. Browns Chiefs. Mitchell Schwartz.
That is correct.
Let's see.
2 left. Browns, Bengals, and Bengals, Patriots.
Browns, Patriots, I have like 7. Bengals don't trade a lot. And I'm trying to think of... Corey Dillon for Patriots, Bengals. That one's... Yeah, I should have had that one.
That is correct. Leaving you with just the 2 Ohio teams.
Browns and Bengals. This is interesting. Okay, so it's not anybody modern. So I'm trying to cycle back in years past. This one I'm going to struggle with. So be hilarious if Akili Smith went to the Browns after he bombed with the Bengals, but he didn't.
Yeah.
I know there's crossover, but you don't get a ton of that kind of crossover in divisions sometimes. And that can be a tough part. I'm thinking to the one Browns playoff team in the early 2000s, like Kevin Johnson, Quincy Morgan, none of those guys end up going over. There's an obvious one that I am completely blanking on that I'm going to laugh at when I figure it out. Let's see. Yeah, I know.
I unfortunately do not know the NFL well enough anymore to to have an answer here. I'm actually stuck on this one too, and it won't tell you when you give up. But
I think I got it. There was a receiver who played for the Browns. His name was Andrew Hawkins. He was like 5'8". I think he was also a Bengal.
All right. Final answer?
Yes.
All right, let's you got it, buddy. That's 9 out of 9. The NFL king.
It only took 5 minutes. Like, I remember so many names, but then when you have to combine them with teams, these are hard.
They're hard.
Not easy.
I've got an NBA open that I've been working on off and on for the day, and got 4 of them that I'm just stuck on. Don't think I'm going to make any progress with it.
Which ones are you stuck on?
We going to do this right now? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the Pistons and the Warriors.
Andrew Bogut.
Was he a Piston?
Didn't he get traded to the Pistons?
I can't swear to it. That is incorrect. You are wrong.
Oh,
you sabotaged me. I can't believe it. Warriors Clippers, which I feel like I should have, but I can't pull it. And the other ones are the Sixers and Hawks and Sixers and Spurs. And I know that I should be. Oh, I got the Sixers and Hawks one now. It's Dikembe Mutombo.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Clippers Warriors. I feel like that's an easy one, but it's not.
I can't. I don't.
What about Warriors Pistons? Richardson, Jason Richardson.
Oh, I think you're right. I think that's right. No, you're not right.
Wow, I suck at that.
Dragging me down. Dragging me down. Go back to the NFL one. Yeah. There should be a Sixers Spurs one that I should be able to just drop in there, but I can't right now. I just don't think I've got it.
Yeah, I'm so good with like a lot of like the mid 90s, early 2000s, like veterans who would just jump from team to team, like the Steve Kerrs, Robert Ory's of the world. But
I should probably just spam like Ish Smith or Tony Massenberg. You know, those guys who played for like 18 franchises.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll leave it there. What an episode. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, it was good. This was fun. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow me at The Real Forno. You can follow Fred at Flagrant Wrestling. You can follow the show.
Nope. Wrong.
What?
Wrong. I have left the Twitter. I'm left the Twitter. I mean, I'm not really using Twitter much going forward.
You left the Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on the Blue Sky.
Oh, you can follow Fred on Blue Sky because
that's Flagrant Stats.
Yeah, and it's
never on Threads.
Yeah, I'm on Threads at Forno08 because they took the Real Forno from me. Somebody did on Instagram. I messaged them trying to get it, and they won't respond, which is boo. You can also find us on Discord, where if you have any questions for us, you can ask us there, and we will gladly answer them on the show. And in the meantime, have yourselves a wonderful day, and we will see you next week to talk more All Elite Wrestling.
Take care, everyone.
Hola, my name is Ricardo. I am the host of the Lucha Jovers podcast here in the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. We are a Spanish-speaking show dedicated to discussing and analyzing pro wrestling from all across the world. From AEW to CMLL, we talk about American wrestling, Japanese wrestling, and of course, Lucha Libre. If something big happened in the pro wrestling world, we will talk about it. So if you know Spanish or have a friend that knows Spanish or want to practice your Lucha Libre pronunciations, go listen to the Lucha Jovers podcast right here in the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. Nos vemos por ahí.
Hello, do you like New Japan Pro Wrestling? Are you a Shin Nihon freak? If so, check out the Super J-Cast with Joel and Damon on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network.
And even if you fucking hate New Japan Pro Wrestling, listen to the Super J-Cast anyway. Not just for our great show reviews, analysis, and pastrami sandwiches, but there's also usually some dick jokes somewhere in the obligatory opening 30 minutes of absolute nonsense we chat about every single week. That's the Super J-Cast for all all the best talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, crisps, and pornography.